Hey, welcome back. And in this video, I am going to go through the series that I played between the 1981 Los Angeles Dodgers and the 1980 Philadelphia Phillies. Really, two of my favorite teams that I've come across in Strat-O-Matic. I think this is a really evenly matched series going in. I really would not give a real leg up to either team. Both teams have good starting pitching. Obviously, you would expect that with the 1980 Phillies ace being Steve Carlton and the Los Angeles Dodgers 1981. Obviously, that was Fernando Valenzuela's rookie season. I would give a little bit of an edge in starting pitching to the Dodgers, though, because I like their 2 and 3 starters better with Jerry Royce and Bert Hooton. But the Phillies are able to throw decent starters out there as well with Dick Ruthven, Larry Christensen, and Bob Walk. So I would say starting pitching is pretty much of a wash. I would also say the bullpens are a pretty much split evenly as well. Both teams have a very good closer. The Phillies obviously had Tug McGraw that year closing, and the Los Angeles Dodgers with Steve Howe. I would say the lineups are both teams have very good lineups, although I would say the Phillies have a little better of a lefty righty split in their lineup than the Dodgers. That Dodger team was pretty much primarily right-handed hitting that year. When you look at the middle of the order, they got Dusty Baker, Steve Garvey, Ron Cey, Pedro Guerrero. So for the most part, most of their bats were tilted towards the right side. But both teams good offensively. I would give a big edge defensively, however, to the Philadelphia Phillies. You're going to see it play out a little bit in this series. Dodger defense at second base and shortstop was a little bit lacking in that season. We've got Davey Lopes at second base for the Dodgers, and even though he's a four, which you really don't want at second base, at least he had a very low E rating, so that makes it kind of livable when you have a single digit E rating like Davey Lopes had. And you got Bill Russell at shortstop, who was a three with a very high E rating. So, the Dodger defense up the middle could be a little bit of a problem in this series. So, let's take a look at what happened in game number one, where we got Valenzuela going up against Steve Carlton, Philadelphia Phillies with home field advantage. So, games one and two played at the vet. And you could see that this game did not go to script when you have two great pitchers like Carlton and Valenzuela going, as we had the Phillies up 5-1 after 6 innings, but then the Dodgers were able to bounce right back and put up a 5 spot in the top half of the seventh. The big hit in that inning was a Steve Garvey 3 RBI double to give the Dodgers a 6-5 lead. So that is what chased Steve Carlton out of the game as he goes 6 and 2/3 innings, allowing 6 runs. You could see only one of the runs were earned because leading off that inning, Larry Boa actually made an error, which was a little bit surprising because Boa was a two with a very good, I would say, E rating at shortstop, but it came up an error, and then with two on and two out, that's when the floodgates opened up for the Dodgers. So Carlton 6 and 2/3 innings, 6 runs, only one earned. Dodgers get to the bottom half of the seventh inning with a 6-5 lead, and Steve Howe was not able to hold on as he gave up a RBI single to Greg Lazinski in the bottom of the eighth to tie the game at 6. And in the ninth inning, it was actually Tom Niedenfuer pitching for the Dodgers because I had to pinch hit for Steve Howe because he was hitting in Ron Say's spot because he was double switched out of the game. So Niedenfuer came into the game and only faced one batter. And you could see on my stat sheet here, I gave it a little bit of a GTFO. Of all people, Larry Boa hits a walk-off home run. Now, this is one thing I would say I have a little bit of a problem with Strat-O-Matic because those of you who are familiar playing the advanced version of the game, All players have a power rating on their card where N power basically means you have enough power to hit a ballpark effect home run, and W power means you do not have the power. So you're not rolling for a home run when you roll those ballpark effect home runs. Now, Larry Bowa's home run was on his card. It was in his two column, and he has a home run 1 to 4. However, he's a W power. So that's just kind of strange to me how Strat-O-Matic would give a player W power, but on his card he would have a home run 1 to 4 on his card. So, and it just so happened to be where it was a home run 1 to 4 out rest of the way, and it just happened to come up a home run. So Larry Boa walks off for the Phillies with a solo home run. So the Phillies take game number one, 7-6. Okay, so moving on to game number two now, we've got another good pitching matchup with Jerry Royce going for the Dodgers and Dick Ruthven going for the Philadelphia Phillies. Both of these guys both have really good cards, and their cards are actually kind of similar in ways because both Ruthven and Royce, even though they do have their average number of hits allowed on their cards, both of them have kind of stingy cards in the way where most of the hits are just like singles and doubles with low rolls. Neither pitcher really has a home run 1 to 15 double rest of the way in the middle of a column anywhere. So both of these really solid pitchers, and you're going to see in game number two, this game pretty much held to script where the Dodgers were able to take it 2-0 in 11 innings. You can see both starting pitchers were terrific in the game. Dick Ruthven, 6 scoreless innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. And the same line for Jerry Rice, only he went 7 innings. And it was Steve Yeager who won this game for the Dodgers with a 2-run home run off of Tug McGraw in the top half of the 11th inning, and Steve Howe was able to pitch 2 and 2/3 scoreless innings out of the pen to get the win. So after 2 games between the 81 Dodgers and the 1980 Phillies, we have a 1-1 series. Okay, so moving on to game number three now between the 1980 Phillies and the 1981 Dodgers, with the series tied a game apiece. Game three, four, and five will be played in Los Angeles. And our starting pitchers in this game would be Bert Hooton for the Dodgers and Larry Christensen for the Philadelphia Phillies. And we're going to see that both pitchers pitched pretty well, as Bert Hooton would go 6 innings, only allowing 1 run on 5 hits, and Larry Christensen would go 5 and 2/3, only allowing 1 run on 4 hits. So another close game, low scoring game, and it was 1-1 going into the top half of the 8th inning. And this was Steve Howe's second inning of work. And after Rose and Trio led off making out, we had a 1-out single by Mike Schmidt. And it was Greg Lazinski hitting a 2-run home run off of Steve Howe to give the Phillies a 3-1 lead. And the Phillies were able to hold the Dodgers off from there, with Tug McGraw going an inning and third for the save. And Ron Reed had the win as he pitched 1 and 2/3 scoreless innings. So you could see a solid outing by the Phillies bullpen. So the Phillies are able to take a 2-1 series lead as we head into game number four. And game number four would be a rematch between the aces, Steve Carlton and Fernando Valenzuela. And unlike in game number one, both aces pitched really well. You're going to see Steve Carlton would go 8 innings, only allowing 1 run. Fernando Valenzuela, 7 innings and 2 runs. Those runs coming off the bat of Mike Schmidt, who broke a scoreless tie in the top half of the 6th inning with a 2-run home run to give the Phillies a 2-0 lead. And then in the top half of the 9th inning, it was Bake McBride hitting a solo home run to give Philly a 3-0 lead. Dodgers were able to make it interesting in the bottom half of the 9th inning, as it was Ron Say leading off with a single. Pedro Guerrero walked. Steve Yeager RBI single to make the score 3-1. And at this point, I was originally committed to trying to go all 9 innings with Carlton, even though obviously pitching on 3 days rest, he was in his point of weakness. It was Yeager's RBI single is what I call a point of weakness hit because when you play the advanced game, most pitchers, their point of weakness will be on a strikeout. So if you roll the card, it says strikeout. But some strikeouts have a little black circle next to them. And when they're in their point of weakness, that black circle means a single and runners advance 2 bases. So when Yeager got that single, I was like, okay, I better get Carlton out of there. So we were looking at a 3-1 game with runners on first and third and nobody out. So I pinch ran Daryl Thomas for Steve Yeager, although I wasn't going to attempt to steal a base in that situation. I had Rick Monday pinch hit for Bill Russell. He popped out, and I'd already used Steve Sachs to pinch hit. He pinched hit for Valenzuela in the 7th inning. So really my only other viable right-handed bat on the bench was Ron Renicky, and he grounds into a double play. So Tug McGraw is able to close the door once again in what was really a terrific game. Final score of 3-1. Phillies take it, and they now have a 3-1 series lead as we move into game number 5. In game number 5, I did not want to run Dick Ruthven out there on 3 days rest. So what I decided to do for the Phillies was I threw Bob Walk out there to start the game. So he's starting game number 5. And the Dodgers have Jerry Royce going on 3 days rest. So that's our pitching matchup going into this 5th game with the Phillies up 3 games to 1. And you're going to see the Dodgers were able to get this one by a final score of 3-2. The big sequence in this game was in the bottom half of the 7th inning where Rick Monday led off by reaching first on a Pete Rose error, which was a little surprising again because Pete Rose was another solid defender for the Phillies. He was a 2 at first base with a very low E rating. However, rolled the dice, it came up an error. So Rick Monday is on first. And then after being sacrificed over to second by Davey Lopes, Jay Johnstone made an out, and Dusty Baker came up and drew a walk. So we've got first and second with 2 men out in a 1-1 game. And it was Steve Garvey coming up with a big 2-out hit to give the Dodgers the lead. And then Pedro Guerrero, 2 batters later, with a bases loaded walk to give the Dodgers a 3-1 lead. Now, the Phillies were able to get a run back in the top half of the 8th inning, solo home run by Mike Schmidt, but Steve Howe was able to close the game from there as he goes 2 innings to get the save. So I was happy to see the Dodgers get this game and get the series back to Philly for a game number 6. As I was playing this game, I was kind of having the feeling that the Phillies would find a way to win this game. And I remember saying to myself how surprised I would be where I got a series here with 2 very evenly matched teams, and to possibly have it only go 5 games would have been really a big surprise to me. However, the Dodgers were able to get this game. And so let's move on to game number 6. Now, in this game, we've got Bert Hooton going on 3 days rest for the Dodgers, and we've got Dick Ruthven going on full rest for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, there's going to be an awful lot to break down from this game because this game really was crazy early on. Now, going into this game, I had kind of said to myself that both of these teams would play this game like it's a game number 7, because if there was a game number 7, you got Valenzuela and Carlton pitching. And in this game, I just really felt like, okay, this is going to be one of those games where, if necessary, both teams are really going to have to empty out their bullpens. I just had a feeling coming into this game that this would be, just one of those games. And as you could see, the Phillies were able to jump out to a 4-1 lead after one inning, as they were able to string together 3 straight RBI hits. Gary Maddox, Bake McBride had a 2 RBI single, and Larry Boa added the last RBI single. So the Phillies are up 4-1 after one inning. And then in the bottom half of the second inning, Mike Schmidt hits a 2-run home run to make it 6-1. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, this game is really starting to get out of hand now. However, the Dodgers were able to claw back into the game in the top half of the third inning. We had Rick Monday, who I decided to insert into the lineup, playing right field and batting second, and basically put him in Ken Landro's spot. Not that Ken Landro was hitting terribly. I believe he was like 4 for 20 through the first 5 games. I just felt like I needed a little more pop in the Dodger lineup. So Monday hits a home run, and then Ron Say hits a 2-run homer to make the score 6-4 Phillies. So that's where we are as we move into the top half of the fifth inning. And it was in the top half of the fifth inning where the Dodgers were actually able to tie the game, as we had a RBI double by Pedro Guerrero and an RBI single by Mike Socha. So after 4.5, we've got a 6-6 ball game. Dodgers were able to take a 7-6 lead in the top of the sixth, as Davey Lopes hit a one-out solo home run off of Marty Bystrom. So the Dodgers go to the bottom of the sixth with a 1-run lead. Now, this is where I had Bob Welch in the game for the Dodgers. I had already used Alejandro Pena for 2 innings and had to pinch hit for him. And it was a little too early to bring in Steve Howe, because Steve Howe was only a 2-inning reliever. So we're only in the bottom half of the sixth inning. I had already used Terry Foster out of the pen. I used Rick Sutcliffe for an inning. I thought to myself, okay, let me see if I could squeeze 1 inning out of Bob Welch. And then what I would do is I would stretch Steve Howe out for 3 innings and try to get this win for the Dodgers and get this to a game number 7. Now, in the bottom half of the sixth inning, I had Del Unser pinch hit for the pitcher spot. He led off with an out. And then after that, we had a Pete Rose single, a Manny Trio single, and Mike Schmidt hitting a 3-run home run. So the Phillies are able to take a 9-7 lead as we move to the seventh. And I figured, from a Phillies standpoint, okay, you know what? I've got a 2-run lead. This is a closeout game. Tug McGraw's a 3-inning reliever. Let's throw Tug McGraw out there, and McGraw is able to close the doors. He pitches 3 scoreless innings, only allowing 1 hit, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. So there we have it. The 1980 Phillies defeat the 1981 Dodgers 4 games to 2. Now, I'm going to go over a couple more things about this game, little notes that I made during the game, just to go back to what I spoke to earlier in the video. You're going to see in this bottom half of the sixth inning, where the Phillies took the lead, Manny Trio had a single. I put a little black dot next to that single just to make a note that that was a single that came from rolling the pitcher's card, and it was a ground ball to second base. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that Davey Lopes was a 4. So when I rolled the 20-sided die, it came up a 4. Now, if we take another look at the full play-by-play of the game, you're going to see I've got 3 black dots. One here in the bottom half of the first inning, Bake McBride, 2 RBI single. That came from a ground ball to second base. Mike Schmidt, single here in the bottom half of the fourth inning. That came from a ground ball to second base. And then in a very big moment, in what was one of the things that really decided this game and eventually the series, Manny Trio with one out and one on, ground ball to second base. It comes up a single. Next guy hits a 3-run home run. So that's just another example of how it can be very hard to have that four at second base. And like I said, Davy Lope's E rating makes it a little more livable. However, playing fours at second base and shortstop, that's really going to get you hurt. So that was really a big factor in the game number 6 win for the Phillies to close out the series. So as you can see, it was a very close series between the two teams as the Phillies outscored the Dodgers 24-20 in the 6 games. So very competitive series. The big performances. First of all, Mike Schmidt had a huge series as he went 12 for 24 in the series with 8 runs scored, 4 home runs, and 8 RBIs. And Mike Schmidt is just one of those guys who is so good that as I was playing the series, I knew he was doing very good, but I didn't realize he was hitting 500 good. So he goes 12 for 24 in the series with 4 home runs, 8 RBIs. And Tug McGraw had a very good series for the Phillies out of the pen as he had a hand in all 4 wins, as he had 1 win and 3 saves and only allowed 2 runs in 9 and a third innings pitched. So there we have it. The 1980 Philadelphia Phillies defeat the 1981 Los Angeles Dodgers 4 games to 2.